Until the release of Gemini 3 Pro image generator, Nano Banana Pro, Flux was my image generator of choice. However, after using Gemini, I haven't used Flux for months. Not that Flux is bad. It's not. It's excellent. And the new Flux 2 offers several features similar to Google. It's just that sometimes in a workflow, it's easier to use products from the same family. That said, it's a pro tip that with all AI tools, it's often horses for courses. Several differ from each other in subtle ways, and might be suited to a different style. It's about a year since I made Mautivika, and a lot has changed in the world of AI. There were two challenges that I faced back then. One was consistency of character. It was very hard to keep the image of the vicar looking the same, and when I had eventually settled on the character's appearance, I found I wasn't able to put them together in the same scene. Nonetheless, the video worked. It showed that a small group with no animation experience could produce something quite passable. It was a great learning experience. Not least was that frustration is a part of AI. I couldn't generate an establishing shot with all the characters, but the lesson is simply don't fight what it produces or what it's capable of doing. Work with it. Be flexible. You will never get exactly what's in your head. Your view of perfection probably isn't going to happen. Remember that with AI, it's only going to get better. This is the worst it's going to be. And you can't always rush the journey. None of the images I'm going to show have been particularly finessed. I just wanted to see what was possible with Nano Banana. First off, it was to put the vicar sitting at the same table where the gossips were sitting, so that they were all sitting in the same place, something that wasn't possible a year ago. All that was required was to include both images and add the prompt to combine them, and then to add him sitting at the same table as the lady who was pouring the tea. The prompt wasn't particularly complicated, and the result is absolutely fine. I then uploaded the resulting image and told Nano Banana to remove the cup of tea the vicar was holding and replace it with a plate of biscuits. The results were impressive. It delivered exactly what I wanted. There were a couple of occasions that weren't quite right, for example, where it changed the vicar's clothes slightly, and this one, where it lost the plot completely. In this case, the scale was completely wrong. The scene was a bit screwed up. The teapot was being held by the spout, and the vicar didn't look anything like the vicar we'd been using. I think this is a useful caution that AI isn't perfect, so don't expect perfection every time. There are times it will go off the rails, and it doesn't deliver what you ask. You have to be patient with it. Treat it the same way you might if an actor simply can't get their lines right first time, or even second time. I also decided to put the vicar, the lady in blue, and one of the gossips at the same table. That worked well, except it managed to produce a floating teapot. Instructing Nano Banana to remove it produced this. Simply typing in our requirements into a computer produces an amended image within seconds. If that isn't staggering, I don't know what is. I instructed Nano Banana to create a realistic close-up of a fox with a shallow depth of field, a cartoon hedgehog, and a cuddly rabbit. I then wanted to see if the system could combine all three different styles into a coherent single image. Whilst I was still considering how I would have done that, the output was already complete, a quick and surprisingly elegant compromise. I also tested spatial memory. I was intrigued to know whether I could make a long shot of a landscape and then zoom in via the prompt to see how well it retained the original information. This was the output from the first prompt. The prompt was then changed to use the image and zoom in so that we're much closer to the houses. I found it impressive that it kept the consistency quite well and simply enhanced the details on the houses. Depth of field shifts work similarly. I had instructed the system to create a second image of the fox and shift the focus to background elements, maintaining consistency and proportion. And finally, here's a video I made showing that transition. I've been working on an idea for a video that involved two people, Des and Jane. I started by creating the Jane character using AI. There was nothing overly complicated at this stage. I didn't have a checklist of exact facial features or measurements. What I was really looking for was an image that looked and felt right, something that matched the tone of the story I had in mind. I've already touched on this briefly, but we haven't really drilled down into one of the most important aspects of image generation, and that's image consistency. So let's take a closer look at what Nano Banana can do when it comes to creating characters with a consistent look and feel across multiple images. Once I had that base image, the next step was to create a character sheet, a collection of images showing Jane from different angles in different poses, with slightly different expressions. This is exactly the kind of thing you'd do in a traditional production. You'd photograph an actor from multiple viewpoints, so you have a solid reference set to work from. And then I repeated exactly the same process for Des. There's a strong sense of consistency and style across all these images. This gives you a very solid starting point. From here you can decide which images really capture the character and the ones you want to build on, and the ones you want to discard. Lastly, I wanted to create an image of a room scene. I probably should have done this first, but I only had fragments of the room in images that was created by Nano Banana and included people. So I instructed Nano Banana to use 3 images and create a single background image that matched what was in those pictures. And this was the output. It was exactly what I wanted. And I could also have asked it to create other scenes from that same room. However, if it was wrong in any way, it would have been straightforward to instruct it to make changes, in the same way that I changed the vicar's cup of tea to a plate of biscuits earlier. Now, that's all very well, I hear you say, but what about using real people? Can it successfully clone a real person? I used a photograph of myself. I asked the system to change the outfit to muted tones, browns, greens, and subdued textures. From that single reference image, I asked it to create 9 reference images in different poses and different angles. It generated a full range of realistic poses and expressions. I then asked it to create a full-length image from the Head and Shoulders reference. I simply instructed it to add dark trousers. Again, it maintained identity, proportion, and expression. From that full-length image, I generated additional character sheets showing a variety of poses, movements, and angles. This capability has profound implications. But now, a single image can produce an entire library of visual references for animation, compositing, or video generation. And if I wanted to change the clothing again, perhaps to different colours, patterns, or even lighting, I could do it instantly. It would probably have made more sense if I'd requested no more than 6 full-length images, or maybe just 3. And the reason for that is resolution. The more images there are on the sheet, the less the resolution will be for each one. Inspecting the 10 images closely shows some loss of fidelity. Similarly, although the image fidelity of the head and shoulder shots that were generated appear to be fine, because the cost is minimal, it might have been a smart tip to request only 4 head and shoulders each time and build up a large library from the curated images. However, all is not lost if you don't have the highest fidelity full-length shots. Using 2 images, 1 full-length and 1 close-up, and including words such as these in the prompt will work. Increase facial detail and sharpness so that the face matches the clarity of the close-up while remaining naturally integrated into the full-length image. This workflow isn't hypothetical. Companies are already doing this commercially. H&M, for example, have created AI clones of their models. It's what they call digital twins, which can be reused across multiple campaigns. They claim that they always label the AI-generated content, but in practice it's actually very hard to distinguish the twin from the real model. The real models say that this is a very useful technique because it saves them lots of time travelling and that they will own their digital twin. This shows that AI-generated human imagery has moved from the experimental to the professional-grade application in a commercial setting. in a very short time.